Men who have been with escorts, what was your experience like? Subscribe for more. Story 1. A friend of mine got involved with an escort. At first, it was just transactional, but he started going back, then dating her. Eventually, she got pregnant, and now he's stuck dealing with her chaos indefinitely. She's a liar, a junkie, and a narcissist, yet he clings to this delusion that one day she'll transform into a good mother and a normal housewife. The reality? That's not happening. But no matter how much I try to get him to see how toxic this situation is, for himself and more importantly, for his kid, he refuses to acknowledge it. He won't take the necessary steps to get her out of the picture, even when it's clear that she's harmful to their son. It's frustrating watching someone sabotage their own life out of blind hope, especially when an innocent kid is caught in the middle. Story 2. Over the past 3 years, I've been with around 30 prostitutes across 3 different countries. For me, it's a mostly positive experience, an entertainment expense I can afford. I've visited legal brothels where sex work is licensed, as well as places where it's technically illegal, but tolerated due to local police corruption. I've never picked up street workers or freelancers, sticking to brothels ranging from high-end luxury to questionable massage rooms. I've never paid under $100, and I know many guys who have done it, even if most women wouldn't realize how common it is. Of course, there are risks. STDs are always a lingering concern, even though I use condoms for everything. Another fear is becoming too accustomed to variety, making long-term commitment difficult. Still, every time I'm there, in the moment, it feels worth it. The experience itself varies. No 2 women are the same. Different techniques, chemistry, levels of enthusiasm. Some women genuinely seem attracted, and while I know part of their job is to flatter clients, sometimes it feels real. Over time, I've learned a lot about the women in this industry. Many people assume all prostitutes are addicts or victims, but the reality is more nuanced. Most brothel workers see it as a job, a way to make money, not a moral crisis. That said, I know street work is a very different world. Some might call me immoral, a loser, or worse. I won't pretend I've never been in shady places tied to organized crime, but I've always treated the women with respect, never hit, coerced, or degraded them. One woman told me she'd been slapped and bitten by clients before and appreciated that I wasn't like that. At the end of the day, these women will be in this work regardless. The least I can do is treat them like people, not objects. Story 3, for me, it's been a really positive experience. I have a facial disfigurement, which makes it difficult to meet women organically. Through escorts, I've had the chance to be with some amazing women, not just for the sex, but for the physical touch, the conversation, and the connection. The girlfriend experience, as they call it, has been something I've really valued. Of course, not every escort is equally personable, but in my experience, most have been kind and warm. If you treat them with respect, you tend to get the same in return. It's given me something that's otherwise hard to find, and I don't take that for granted. Story 4, I worked as an escort for 3 years to pay for nursing school, and in that time, I met a lot of different people. But my most memorable client was a widower in his 60s who wasn't looking for anything physical, just companionship. Every week, he'd take me to dinner, recreating the dates he used to have with his late wife. He'd bring photos of their travels, share stories about their life together, and for a few hours, it was like she was still there with him. It wasn't about desire, it was about connection, about holding on to something that mattered. Those evenings taught me a lot about love, loss, and the simple human need to be seen. Story 5. A close friend of mine, an Indian bachelor with no immediate family, has decided to never marry. He's quite wealthy, and over the years, he's shared a lot with me. His thoughts, experiences, and how he chooses to navigate life. He often spends time with escorts, not just for pleasure, but for companionship. He takes them to beautiful locations, treats them well, and buys them gifts. It's never just transactional for him. He tries to offer them a sense of respect and normalcy. When I once asked him what it was like to be with a different woman each time, his answer wasn't what I expected. He told me about the different reasons women enter this world, some forced by circumstance, others seeking financial stability, and a few who genuinely enjoy the experience but appreciate the added benefit of financial support. Some are kind and composed, while others have been through so much that their walls are up, their personalities hardened. What impacted him most were the stories of struggle. Women controlled by pimps, treated as objects, sometimes seeing more than 5 or 6 clients a day. The reality of that life hit him hard, and since then, he's changed his approach. Now he helps those in need, giving financial support without expecting anything in return. He sends gifts, food, and has even taken on the responsibility of funding 2 children's education until they graduate. One moment that really stayed with him was a conversation he had with a particularly beautiful escort. He asked if she still felt excitement when touched by a man. Her response? "My body has become an instrument, just parts doing what they're supposed to do. I don't feel connected to them anymore. I wish I could reset and experience a loving touch for the first time." That moment shifted something in him, and maybe in a way, it shifted something in me too. Story 6. In the moment, some were very good, some were very bad. I regret all of it regardless. Wish I never did any of it. Someone replied, "Just curious, why did you regret it?" OP replied, "Probably because sex workers don't feel anything for you. It's all a transaction." Story 7. If I hadn't gone down this path, I'd still be a virgin at nearly 40. Over the past 13 years, I've been with more than 100 escorts, some just once, others regularly for long periods. I don't remember all of them. The ones that stand out were either amazing or terrible. Finding the right regular is difficult. The ones I connected with eventually left the industry. Most of my experiences were in legal brothels in Europe, though some women worked independently from home, advertising online. I even had a few encounters in red light districts, but those tend to be purely physical, quick transactions with little intimacy. And for me, the experience isn't just about sex. I want some level of foreplay, cuddling, or even a moment of shared connection. Not everyone is willing to provide that. Would I recommend it? Not if you have the ability to meet women in the normal way, but for someone like me, physically unattractive, socially awkward, it felt like the only option. It's better than nothing, I suppose, but that's not really saying much. Story 8. When life gets rough and depression hits, I don't turn to drugs or alcohol, I turn to sex. At one of my lowest points, when everything was falling apart, I decided to spend an evening with a professional, the best I could afford. And honestly, it was worth every penny. The attention, the intimacy, the escape. It pulled me out of my funk in a way nothing else could. By morning, I had a clear head, ready to face reality again. Story 9, honestly hated it. Felt like I was so worthless that had to resort to paying for it. Story 10, it really depends on you, on them, on what you want out of it. Some are experienced, some aren't. Some are completely jaded, others know how to play the part. Picture the worst lay of your life, zero effort, just going through the motions. Now imagine the wildest, sexiest woman you've ever met, someone who seems like she can't get enough of you. That second one, she's almost always faking. The first, that's just her being real. Like anything in life, it's a spectrum. Sometimes it's incredible. Other times it's forgettable. In the end, it's all a roll of the dice. Story 11, I love it. As long as you keep your emotions in check, understand it's just a fantasy, and treat the other person with respect. Not every experience is great. Some escorts clearly aren't into it, and when that happens, it just feels like being with a lifeless doll. Once I even refused to go through with it because the woman was visibly distressed, probably mistreated by her pimp. I just wish prostitution were legal everywhere. It would make things safer for everyone involved. Story 12. I was addicted to prostitution for years, trapped, unable to stop. I should have gone to therapy, but embarrassment and addiction kept me from seeking help. I wasted an unbelievable amount of money and nearly destroyed my marriage. Prostitution is destructive, a social evil. Just because there's consent doesn't mean it's ethical or safe. The women involved are often struggling. Many are addicts, dealing with mental health issues, or survivors of past abuse. They face constant violence and exploitation. As a client, you're never helping. Story 13. I've had my fair share of experiences. Well over 100 encounters with escorts, prostitutes, and sugar babies across different arrangements. Living in Europe, where prostitution is legal, provided a unique opportunity. One of my best experiences was at an FKK in Germany. Truly amazing. I also frequented a brothel there and even had a long-distance relationship with one of the women that lasted several years. In Madrid, I tried hiring streetwalkers, but the experience wasn't particularly memorable. Over time, I've used various platforms to hire escorts, including Craigslist and other websites. Some were fantastic, and others not so much. I also explored long-term relationships with sugar babies, including 2 who moved in with me for a while, and 1 I dated for a few months. While these experiences are behind me now, they were important for what I needed at the time. They helped me figure out what I wanted from relationships and provided a broader perspective on life. Story 14. Yes and yes, but only if you're at a point where you're able to secure dates and sex on your own without paying for it. It can be a nice little treat to yourself. Be respectful and not overly aggressive, but also enjoy yourself. You're paying for a service, so don't be shy about saying what you want and like. Story 15. Many people report negative experiences with the Ford Escort, citing issues like poor engine performance, noisy cabin, unreliable mechanics, subpar handling, and a dated design, particularly in the later model years. Often considering it a cheap and basic car, with not much going for it beyond its affordability as a first car. The most common complaints usually center around the Mark V Escort generation with its CVH engine and torsion beam rear suspension. If you like stories like these, please make sure to like and subscribe for more. If you have any opinions on these stories, let me know what you think in the comments below. I hope you all enjoyed today's story time, and I hope to hear from you all soon.